30th September 1941, 05:12 hours, the western outskirts of Vyazma, Soviet Union. The air is already sharp enough to sting the lungs. German boots crunch over frost-hardened earth as Panzer III engines idle, coughing blue smoke into the dawn. A thin sun claws its way above the tree line, lighting fields littered with abandoned Soviet trucks, frozen corpses half buried in mud turned stone. Somewhere ahead, artillery mutters like distant thunder. A lieutenant checks his wristwatch. 5 minutes late. Again. The men don't complain. They've marched too far, conquered too much. Poland fell. France collapsed. The Balkans cracked open in weeks. This endless land was supposed to do the same. Orders ripple down the column. Army Group Center advances. Moscow is close now. So close you can almost smell it. Fuel trucks struggle forward, wheels spinning uselessly. Mechanics curse as oil thickens inside metal casings, and Oberfeldwebel smams the starter again. Nothing. He tries once more. The engine refuses, cold and unfeeling. Around him, soldiers laugh it off. The generals said winter wouldn't matter. The Führer himself promised the war would be over before the snow. Russia, they said, was a rotting structure. Kick in the door and it would collapse. Ahead, maps show red arrows slicing east, bold and confident. Behind them, supply lines stretch thin, too thin, over roads that no longer deserve the name. Horses drop in their traces, boots split, fingers go numb inside gloves never meant for this cold. And yet, the orders remain the same. Forward. Somewhere beyond the forests and ruined villages, Moscow waits. Its spires unseen, its defenders silent. In Berlin, champagne glasses are already being polished. But here, on this frozen road, the war has begun to feel different. The laughter is fading, and the cold is only just arriving. October 1941. The road east of Vyazma no longer exists. What remains is a ribbon of mud, torn apart by tank tracks and wagon wheels, swallowing boots whole. Men curse as they pull each other free, the suction sound obscene in the silence between artillery barrages. Rifles are slung, not carried. Every ounce of strength is needed just to walk. This is Rasputitsa, the season the maps never warned them about. Panzer divisions that once thundered across France now crawl forward at a walking pace. Vehicles bog down axle deep. Horses collapse mid-step, eyes wide, legs trembling, then still. The smell of rot follows the columns like a shadow. A Hauptmann unfolds his map on the hood of a staff car. Rain blurs the ink, lines that lead into nothing. Each kilometer east costs fuel they don't have, time they can't afford. Behind them, the supply trains are breaking apart. Bridges collapse under weight they were never built to bear. Soviet partisans strike at night, cutting telephone lines, torching fuel dumps, vanishing into forests that seem endless. Ammunition arrives late, food arrives spoiled, winter clothing doesn't arrive at all, and still the orders come down. Moscow must be taken before winter. The men hear it whispered in columns, murmured in foxholes. 10 weeks, that was the promise. 10 weeks to finish the war in the east. 10 weeks to break the Red Army. But the Red Army is not broken. Soviet units retreat, yes, but never disappear. Every village costs lives. Every river crossing is paid for in blood. T-34 tanks appear without warning, sloped armor shrugging off shells that should have killed them.
German soldiers begin to notice something unsettling. The enemy is learning. As October bleeds into November, the rain turns heavier, colder. The mud begins to stiffen overnight. Boots freeze, rifles seize, men wake with ice on their blankets. Ahead, Moscow is still hundreds of kilometers away. Behind them, there is no turning back. And somewhere in the forests beyond the front line, fresh Soviet divisions are moving west, silent, unseen, and waiting for the ground to harden.
November 15th, 1941. Night falls outside Klin. The temperature drops without warning. 1 hour, breath fogs the air. The next, it crystallizes. Metal screams as it contracts. Rifle bolts refuse to move. Machine guns lock solid, their grease turned to paste. Men strike weapons against trees, against boots, against anything that might wake the steel. Nothing does. A Gefreiter removes his gloves to clear ice from a trigger guard. 10 seconds later, he cannot feel his fingers. 20 seconds after that, the skin turns white. He stuffs his hands under his armpits, teeth chattering so hard it hurts. This cold is not an inconvenience. It is an enemy. German engines die in rows, their oils never formulated for temperatures plunging past -20 degrees Celsius. Panzer crews light fires beneath engine blocks, risking Soviet artillery just to get 1 more kilometer of movement. Some tanks start, most do not. The Red Army does. White shapes move through the trees, Soviet ski troops, silent and fast, rifles slung, faces wrapped in cloth. They glide across frozen ground the Germans can barely stand on. At night, flares bloom overhead, and the forests erupt with sudden gunfire. The front is no longer a line, it's a fracture. German units dig in with bayonets and bare hands, earth frozen like iron. Shovels shatter. Foxholes are shallow graves waiting to happen. Frostbite cases explode, feet blackened, ears lost, noses turning numb before disappearing entirely. Still, Berlin demands advance. Still, Hitler forbids retreat. In Moscow, church bells ring, not in celebration, but defiance. Civilians dig trenches beside soldiers. Factory machines are dismantled and sent east, even as workers sleep on concrete floors to keep production alive. And far beyond the front, in Siberia, trains are unloading men in padded coats, fresh divisions, hardened by cold the Germans cannot imagine. Marshal Georgy Zhukov watches the reports stack up. The enemy is freezing, the ground is hardening, and for the first time since June, the Red Army is preparing not to retreat, but to strike. December 1, 1941. Dawn outside Himki, less than 30 kilometers from Moscow. German forward observers can see the city's outer districts through binoculars. Factory smokestacks, rail lines, the promise of victory finally within reach. Some officers swear they can make out the spires of the Kremlin on a clear morning. But the men no longer believe in promises. The cold has deepened to something unnatural, -30 degrees. Breath freezes in scarves, boots stick to metal. The wounded die before medics reach them. Rations are frozen bricks that must be chipped apart with bayonets. Still, Army Group Center attacks. Infantry advances in stiff mechanical steps. Tanks lurch forward only when coaxed by fire and prayer. Artillery fires fewer shells. Ammunition is too precious now. Then the Soviets answer.
It begins before sunrise. A rolling thunder from the east. Katyusha rocket launchers scream into the sky, their howls cutting through the dark. Explosions tear across German positions with a violence the front hasn't seen before. Snow and earth rain down. Entire platoons vanish in seconds. Out of the smoke come the counterattacks. Fresh Red Army divisions in white camouflage surge forward, rifles blazing. T-34s punch through thin German lines, engines roaring confidently in the cold. Cavalry units sweep around the flanks, cutting roads already barely passable. German commanders radio for reserves. There are none. Divisions meant to reinforce the push on Moscow are scattered, frozen, or already engaged just to survive. Communications break down as batteries die and lines snap. Orders arrive too late or not at all. For the first time, panic spreads. Not fear, panic. Men realize something unthinkable. They are not winning, and worse, they may not escape. As Soviet forces close in, Hitler issues a final command from thousands of kilometers away. Hold every position, no retreat. On the frozen fields outside Moscow, surrounded by an enemy that grows stronger with every hour, German soldiers stare east and understand that the war they planned has ended. What comes next will decide the fate of millions.
December 5, 1941, 06:30 hours, along the entire Moscow front. The night explodes. From Kalinin in the north to Tula in the south, the Red Army strikes at once. Not in fragments, not in desperation, but with coordination, weight, and intent. Artillery batteries fire until barrels glow. Katyushas scream again, their rockets tearing long scars across frozen German positions. This is no local counterattack. This is an offensive. Marshal Georgy Zhukov has waited for this moment. He has counted the days of frost, watched German engines fail, studied reports of frostbite and fuel shortages. Now he releases the reserves, Siberian divisions trained for winter war, men who move easily through snow the Germans stumble through like ghosts. German lines buckle. Ski troops slip behind positions, cutting telephone wires, overrunning command posts before alarms can sound. Entire regiments wake to find themselves encircled. Officers shout orders that no longer matter. Maps are useless, landmarks are gone beneath snowdrifts. Panzers attempt to maneuver, then stop. Fuel frozen solid, engines dead. Some crews abandon their machines, leaving steel giants to the cold. Others fight from immobile hulls until ammunition dries dry, then vanish into the white. Desperate messages reach headquarters. Divisions are collapsing, flanks are open, men are freezing in place. Still, the order holds. No retreat. But reality doesn't obey ideology. Units begin to pull back without permission, first by squads, then by companies. Some march west in silence, others run. Discipline fractures under the weight of survival. What was once a planned campaign dissolves into a struggle to avoid annihilation. Zhukov presses harder. Every kilometer reclaimed feels like a declaration. The Red Army has not only survived, it has learned. And now it is teaching the Wehrmacht a lesson written in ice and blood. As German forces stagger backward, one truth becomes unavoidable. The blitzkrieg is broken, and the war in the East has entered a phase no one in Berlin ever planned for. January 8, 1942, somewhere west of Moscow. The wind never stops. It scours the snow-covered fields, whips through skeletal forests, howls through the ruins of villages that no longer have names. German columns move west in silence now, No marching songs, no jokes, no victory talk. Just the crunch of frozen boots and the distant echo of Soviet artillery, always closer than it should be. What remains of Army Group Center is unrecognizable. Divisions that cross the Soviet border at full strength are shadows stitched together from survivors. Rifles are carried more for balance than firepower. Men walk with rags wrapped around feet that may never feel warmth again. The wounded are left behind, not from cruelty, but because stopping means freezing to death. Hitler finally relents, partially. Limited withdrawals are permitted. Too late to save tens of thousands, too late to restore momentum. The illusion of invincibility, once carefully constructed by victory after victory, lies shattered beneath the snow. Moscow still stands. Its factories hum, its rail lines pulse with life, its defenders, bloodied but unbroken, watch the enemy retreat for the first time. Church bells ring again, this time in something close to triumph. In Berlin, the language changes. No more talk of quick victories, no more 10-week promises. Instead, there are speeches about endurance, about sacrifice, about destiny. The tone is defensive now, strained. The Wehrmacht has not been destroyed, but it has been stopped. And in war, that can be enough to change everything. The Eastern Front will rage for years more, consuming cities, armies, nations. But here, outside Moscow, in the frozen winter of 1941, the direction of the war quietly shifts. The German advance has failed. The Red Army has survived, and the world has just witnessed something no one thought possible.